You know those videos where actors talk about their roles? Why do they only talk about the popular ones? What about the smaller movies, the really bad ones? Those questions inspired me to pick one actor and watch every single movie they've been in and then talk about them no matter how good or bad. The actor I chose, drumroll please, Nicolas Cage. Never mind, he has over 100 movies. And look, I'm a small channel, okay, so I'm not about to risk putting like 200 hours into a video for it to get like 300 views. I then picked an actor who I'm a really big fan of, but only has about 20 films under his name.
Please welcome back to The Late Show, Andrew Garfield.
What are his best movies? What are his worst? I'm ranking all of them, ranking his performances. I'm gonna tell you what you need to watch, maybe what you can skip, and hey, maybe you'll learn something along the way. So to start, let's go all the way back to 2007 with Boy A. Going into Boy A, I had no idea what to expect from Garfield's first role. Was he going to be as good as I know him to be, or would there be a bit of a learning curve watching him get better over the years as he honed his craft? While I can confirm he did indeed get better over the years, I was honestly blown away at how good he is in this movie. It's not an easy task for your first film role ever to be the lead in a very melancholy film with a gloomier, quiet tone. I'm not even sure how many first roles I've seen of actors, but I'm pretty sure they're not supposed to be this good. I was so curious because I couldn't fathom that, so I did some research into his earlier work because people don't just show up and start acting like this. I quickly learned from a very reliable source that Garfield had been doing acclaimed stage work at the Manchester's Royal Exchange Theatre, where he won the Best Newcomer Award for his roles in the play Keys, I can't say that, and then later making his British television show debut in the show Sugar Rush. He'd pop up in Doctor Who a few years later, bada bam bam bam, and that takes us to Boy A. The film is about a young man named Jack who re-enters society after being released from prison, a place he ended up due to his involvement in the death of a little girl when he was younger. He tries desperately to obtain a normal life, finding love and a job, but as the movie goes on, it becomes harder and harder for him to avoid these past crimes that seem to be relentlessly chasing after him. It feels very much like the epilogue chapter for this character, and while it is a slow burn that isn't for everyone, I found myself surprised with how much I liked the film. The conclusion is great, Andrew Garfield is terrific, and it's actually shot really well too. One hell of a start for a career, my 12th favorite film on the list of 16 main theatrical films I'm going to be talking about today.
Blame me, because I might just want to live the good life, because I can, because I'm smart enough to. You gonna blame me?
Andrew Garfield starts his American film career by starring with some of the biggest names in the industry: Tom Cruise, Meryl Streep, Robert Redford, and all around, that's the best part of this movie. The performances are great. It's a huge jump from my boy Andrew going head to head with the freaking Sundance Kid. It's not an easy task to pull off. In this film, Garfield plays Todd Hayes, a Good Will Hunting type character who's smart but has stopped applying himself, and now he's got to talk to his teacher, played by Robert Redford, so they can discuss the future of his academics. It would be incredibly easy for Todd to be just the other character in a scene with an acting legend, but not only does Garfield hold his own, he shines. This sequence of the movie is one of the better ones, and you can tell the performances are good because I'm just sitting here watching a student and teacher debate each other, but it's incredibly fascinating. Unfortunately, there are some other parts of the movie I'm not a big fan of, and I think that holds this movie back, but a 27 on Rotten Tomatoes is way too low. Time to talk about the elephant in the room though, okay? Somebody's gotta be last. That's just the way the world works, and I'm telling you now, there is not a bad film in this filmography. Sure, some are better than others, but I don't think you could watch any of these films and it be a miserable experience. I mean, I did, and it wasn't. That's not to say I'd recommend all of them, but none of them, in my opinion, are bad. With that being said, I love watching Andrew Garfield and Robert Redford go back and forth. I wish it was the whole movie, although that might be a little boring, but it's not, and some of the other storylines hold the film back. I'm putting this at the bottom of the list. The importance of this movie though is that it got a lot of eyes on Andrew Garfield doing a very solid performance, and I think it opened up a lot of doors for him in the future.
A very great mind
of Dr. Parnassus.
This is a very special movie, and I want to take a small Andrew Garfield detour, if you'll allow me, to talk about a few other actors: Heath Ledger, Jude Law, Colin Farrell, and Johnny Depp. A lot of people, myself included, think that The Dark Knight is Heath Ledger's last film, but it's actually this one. Unfortunately, he passed away during this film's production. With scenes still remaining that he didn't get to finish, these fine gentlemen stepped up and played his role in a collection of these dream sequences and donated their paychecks to his family. It's an astounding gesture that I really wanted to share because it's such a cool story. The movie itself, though, is kind of hard to explain. I'm gonna try my best, but bear with me, it's a lot. Pretty much, Dr. Parnassus is an immortal being who can transport regular, everyday people into the manifestation of their imagination, but he kind of has a gambling problem, so he makes a deal with the devil for the property of his daughter. It's weird, just go with it. So with the help of some friends, he races against the devil to capture souls, but he sucks at marketing, so some guy off the streets has to help him. Sound crazy? It's crazy. Our boy Garfield plays one of Dr. Parnassus' circus helpers in this one, going up against Heath Ledger's Tony for the love of immortal genie's daughter, Valentina. The movie takes a lot of big swings, and while they hit a few, sometimes I think the scope and imagination of the ideas gets a little uncontained. I think this movie would be far better if made today because of the technology needed for some of these big sequences, but even for 2009, this movie is by no means bad and has a lot going for it. It's one of the more lighthearted roles we get from Andrew Garfield in his whole filmography, and it asks a lot from him, and he delivers it without an ounce of hesitation. In fact, I'd say all the actors do a tremendous job here, and there's definitely a version of this movie in the multiverse that is a lot worse, but for the scope and spectacle this movie tries to pull off, I would by no means consider it a failure. If anything, the fact that it was finished is a tremendous testament to the hard work of the production. I enjoyed my time with the film, as wacky as it is, but I'm gonna put it at 13. Never Let Me Go is really the first edition in the subgenre of Andrew Garfield movies I like to call depressing as hell. Based on the 2005 novel of the same name, this film follows a set of clones who live their life up until around 30, where they're sacrificed in order to keep their older clone counterparts alive well past the normal life expectancy. The movie is good, first of all. It's well shot, acted, everything, but damn, why is it so sad? The tone is very quiet and melancholy, similar to Boy A, and it really is this roller coaster of reflection on life, love, and the short time we have on Earth. It makes you think about all the relationships you have in your life, and if you don't have an emotional reaction to this film by the end, I think something's wrong with you, man. You need therapy or something. It's one of the least flashy performances in Garfield's career. For the most part, it's very quiet and subdued, but still very nuanced and human. As really the last film before he'd blow up into the celebrity he now is, it's nice to get a performance that strips him down to just a guy who's dealing with hope, love, sadness, and everything in between. No CGI, no big budgets, not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying it's nice. Good movie though, watch it if you want to cry. Number 10 on my list.
Mark! Mark!
He's wired in.
Sorry?
He's wired in.
Is he?
Yep.
Andrew Garfield, do your thing, king. The Social Network is when Andrew Garfield says acting. You think that was acting? Idiots. I'm just getting started. I think everyone who's into movies knows about The Social Network by now, so I'm not going to say too much about it because so much has already been said, but I think it's safe to say this is the movie that really blew Andrew Garfield up. I remember when he would eventually be cast in Spider-Man, everyone, at least in my circles, would say, oh, it's the guy from The Social Network. Why did this movie blow up, you ask? Well, that's easy. Andrew Garfield is incredible in this movie, first of all, due in part to an amazing director, writing, and co-stars. But up until this point, it was by far the most popular and accessible of his films. It would get a bunch of Oscar nominations, even winning a few, and honestly, as early into his career as this might be, I think Andrew Garfield could and maybe should have been nominated for Best Supporting Actor. I said it. That's right, he's 5 movies in and already, in my opinion, giving an Oscar-worthy performance. This movie put him on the map for a lot of people, and the sheer acting ability he displayed, I think, silenced a lot of worries for the Spider-Man reboot. His role as Eduardo Saverin takes us on this roller coaster of feelings, watching the relationship between these two friends fall apart as Facebook itself grows, and as the film goes on, Eduardo becomes kind of like our hero, the most sympathetic and understandable character the film offers. It's not the first nor the last time I'll say this, but Andrew Garfield is stupid good in this movie. It's a top 3 film in my opinion, but I'm gonna wait until the end to reveal where it ranks. Adds more suspense, you know? I'm gonna cut to the chase. He's my favorite Spider-Man. The fact that the biggest complaint people have with him is that he's too cool, he can't help it. Okay, he's just born like that. I think a lot of people had reservations going into this reboot, but this movie is just such a damn good time. Lizard is a unique villain. Gwen Stacy is the best love interest in any comic book movie. MJ's I'm sorry. And Andrew Garfield is of course terrific. He plays Peter in a very fun way, and I love how he delivers a lot of these quips. It feels like an updated version of Tobey's, who I love by the way, but his quips don't really hit that well for me, especially like now. When he's Peter, he is quieter and a little more timid, but when he's in the suit, he has this confidence that makes him so much fun to watch. It makes everything feel natural. The tone is a little more serious than Tobey's, but it's still a very fun movie. The chemistry between him and Emma Stone, I think, is the highlight of the movie, and I just love how smart he is. He feels the smartest to me of all the Spider-Men. The other two, they kind of just, they tell you they're smart, but with Peter 3, I know he's smart. I'm putting this bad boy at number 5. Wow, this is a controversial one. This is a movie a lot of people hate. They say it's awful and that it ruined the trilogy. But honestly, it ain't that bad. Pull up. What's good? Do something. When I first saw this movie, I wasn't a fan. And I'll admit, going into my rewatch, I was like, oh man, now I gotta watch Spider-Man 2. I wasn't looking forward to it, but I was honestly really surprised. Is it amazing? No. It has flaws, a good amount of them, but especially after a lackluster group of MCU films, I can really admire this movie for having at least substance. It is a love story, and Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone are just as good, if not better, in this film than the first. In Andrew's performance as Peter, we see him struggle with that promise he made to Captain Stacy, his relationship with Harry, and to a lesser extent, what ends up happening with Max. I love the scenes he has with Max because Peter has this infectious kindness to him that you feel. It is a testament to how good the performance is. I think the thing that holds this movie down is the weird subplot with his parents that never gets resolved, and then also kind of like the Green Goblin thing. But there's still a lot in this movie that's really enjoyable. The score is terrific, first of all. The performances are good, but more importantly, the relationship between Peter and Gwen is incredibly touching. Watching Peter go back and forth in this relationship only to finally choose and then end up losing Gwen in one of Andrew's most heart-wrenching scenes. I don't even want to talk about this scene because I'll start crying first of all, but he is so freaking good. I know some people say that scream acting is kind of like cheating, but this is so much more than that, good lord. The heartbreaking thing, which really gets me, is also what makes the acting here so good, is that he doesn't just start screaming and bawling his eyes out. You can see him process things in his head as he looks at the body, slowly realizing what has just happened. It's honestly like 10 out of 10 acting. One of the best scenes I think he's ever done. The end of this movie, though, is one of my favorite Spider-Man scenes ever. Bringing hope back to the city, coming back from tragedy because the people are depending on you. I know this sounds silly, okay, but like, it makes me want to be better, okay? It makes me want to like go make a difference and stuff. Okay, I'll save you, kid, I'll save you. It has its flaws, sure, but we've seen way worse Marvel movies come out since this one did. Give it another watch if you don't remember it. If it's been a while, I'm just saying. 11th best.
Maybe he saw me. I was working on his home. Maybe. I don't know. Okay?
Just tell me.
I'm telling you.
Okay, it's halftime. Spider-Man time's done for now. What did he follow up with? 99 Homes, and honestly, pretty good. The film's about a single father who loses his house and then teams up with a jerkwad who kicked him out, and he starts making money while turning into something he doesn't really like. It's one of the more unlikable Andrew Garfield characters, and he feels very much like a villain who you understand why he does what he does, but he still becomes a jerk in the process. It is a nice change of pace after Spider-Man to make things smaller, a more intimate story about a dad, his family, and choosing between financial success and your own morals. Andrew is awesome in the role, taking on a more aggressive character who isn't afraid to pick a fight, get sassy, condescending, and all that slimy stuff. Laura Dern and Michael Shannon are also really good. I love this dynamic between Shannon and Garfield. It's like the best part of the movie. It feels kind of like Breaking Bad, watching this down on his luck dude who you have sympathy for turn into this real estate swindler who ends up prioritizing that sweet, sweet cash. So if Breaking Bad but with real estate instead of meth sounds cool to you, I say check it out. I really enjoyed it. 7th best movie, baby.
Well, I'm sorry, Sergeant. I can't touch a gun.
While 99 Homes was the film Andrew followed up Spidey with, it was a little smaller and lesser known, but Andrew's return to the big budget film would be in Mel Gibson's Hacksaw Ridge. I think in terms of popularity, it's definitely one of the bigger films on this list, even nabbing Mr. Garfield a very well-deserved Oscar nomination. It's about time. This would also start the Andrew Garfield subgenre of Jesus Christian films, and let me tell you, as soon as my boy Andrew whips out the Bible, you know that movie's going crazy. The film follows Desmond Dawes, a young soldier in World War II who refuses to fight, instead opting to work as a medic, saving as many soldiers as he can, and the dude saves a lot of soldiers. This is also the second time Garfield has played a character inspired by a real person, the others being Eduardo Saverin, and later Robin Cadavish, Jim Baker, and finally Jonathan Larson. Sorry fellas, Spider-Man, he's not real. It's also pretty funny to think that like a third of his movies, he plays a character inspired by a real life person. This movie is such a sleeper, man. I remember seeing it in theaters and liking it, but once I watched it again, it goes even crazier. The first half of the movie is this drama about the army not accepting Desmond, and it's pretty good stuff, but in the second half, when the actual battle starts, it hits you like a frickin' train. The action is tension-filled and visceral. It's not at all army propaganda. If anything, it's showing you just how awful war is and the impact it has on people. I think it's important though for things to get as dark as they do so that you can see this beacon of kindness and hope shine through that much brighter. Desmond is a truly inspiring character and person, and I love what Andrew Garfield does here. Again, there's a certain kindness I think Andrew Garfield brings really well to characters, and this performance puts it on full display. Desmond is this kind soul who's fighting against the evil of war, not with a weapon like everyone else, but with love and compassion. It's shot well, all the other performances are great. Vince Vaughn, why are you so good in this movie, dude? It's also joining Social Network as one of my top 3 films.
How do we neglect the man that nurtured us in the faith? If he shapes the world for us.
Wow, this movie. Oh my god. This movie is hard to talk about, but what I will say is that it's an absolute juggernaut of emotion. It's not an easy watch, it's super long, almost 3 hours, but all of that is necessary in making a film that feels like a journey. It is a quest of faith, humanity, and the suffering that Rodriguez goes through in this movie. I feel like the whole entire time I was on that journey with him. It's a phenomenal piece of filmmaking. But I mean, that's kind of what you expect when you team up Scorsese, Andrew Garfield, and Adam Driver. You get an absolutely fantastic film. The film takes place in 1600s Japan, where Christians are killed and often tortured just for existing. And after their mentor, Father Ferreira, goes missing in the country, his 2 apprentices have to go into the country to find him. I'm not going to get too much into the story because of spoilers, but it is a heavy movie with a lot of emotions, and both Andrew Garfield and Adam Driver are top class here. Neither of them were nominated for this movie, and it's an absolute travesty. Andrew Garfield brings a heartbreaking performance as this priest who has to suffer tremendously for his faith and those around him. And if you watch the film, I guarantee you there are moments that will leave you speechless. I had to go take a bath and eat a pint of ice cream after this movie because it's just a lot. Andrew Garfield studied with Catholic priests while preparing for this role, and it's here he claims to have found a love and appreciation for Jesus. It seems to be a role that meant a lot to him, and it shows because there was so much heart in this performance, it's crazy. One of his best in my opinion. Make sure you stay until the end of the video because I'm going to be ranking all of his performances as well. This one is so underrated, it's going to take my final top 3 spot.
I don't want to just survive. I want to truly live.
After some pretty intense films in Hacksaw Ridge and Silence, we get a little more of a lighthearted film in Breathe. The first thing that stood out to me about this movie is that it's acting legend Andy Serkis's directorial debut. I don't know why I always thought it was Jungle Book, but this guy does a phenomenal job. The film follows Robin Cavendish, who's diagnosed with polio at a young age and given roughly 6 months to live, but by the power of perseverance, he lives a lot longer than that and does some pretty remarkable things. Another character based on a real person, and let me tell you, it's an incredibly inspirational story. It's a film about finding something worth living for, and it's a very unique performance for Andrew Garfield in the sense he doesn't really move his body for most of the film. His character being paralyzed from the neck down, Andrew acts with only his voice and facial expressions. And it's incredible how he's still able to give a authentic and nuanced performance with the limited amount of expression. Heck, for a good portion of the film, he can't even talk, and I think it takes a really good actor like Garfield to pull that off. Like so many times, he has a great cast around him, and just like many of these films, it's both full of hope and sadness. It's an incredible story though, and the real life person of Robin Cavendish, his son is a producer on the film and made this movie to help tell his dad's story. I think that's super cool. A very unique performance for Mr. Garfield in a movie that will make you laugh, cry, and everything in between. It's a good movie in my opinion, the 9th best he's done. I know 9 might seem low, but I can't understate how good this man's filmography is. Moving on. This is a weird ass movie. It's weird as hell. It's a black comedy with aspects of horror, mystery, comedy, drama. Whatever you want in a movie, you can probably find it here. It comes to us from David Robert Mitchell, who made the outstanding It Follows, and this is by far the weirdest film of Garfield's filmography. Our boy plays Los Angeles resident Sam, who hits it off with a girl in his apartment complex, only for her to soon after go missing. Being the love-struck guy he is, Sam goes on a citywide search for the girl and gets tangled up in cults, hobos, musicians, mythological bird murderers, and so much other crazy stuff, it's insane. Here's the thing, although this movie is by no means bad, a lot of it I actually really enjoyed. It didn't really connect with me that much, but I think upon further rewatches, it might go way up in my list. It feels like a journey of insanity. It has some legit hysterical moments and some pieces of horror I actually found to be incredibly well done. You can tell David Robert Mitchell has a talent for horror and thrillers. It takes some big swings, some of which don't hit for me, but I'd still say it was a decent film. Andrew Garfield is like a one-man show in this. He interacts with other people, sure, but usually not for long. It's an odyssey of craziness, and I think his performance is one of the best parts of the film. With so much going on, he has to do a lot, and I love how he approaches some of these really goofy moments with a seriousness that makes the scenes absolutely hysterical. It's a film you have to check out for yourself, and I feel like if you watch it 100 times, you'll find something new to dissect every single watch. It is a wild ride for sure, but Andrew Garfield is great. In my opinion, I'm putting it at 14 on the list, but again, by no means a bad movie.
You're trying to kill my deep, profound, life-giving impulse. I'm not gonna let you do it. No, hell no.
Mainstream stands out to me because it's the film Andrew Garfield feels the most like a villain. He's aggressive, confrontational, manipulative, and by far this is the least likable character Garfield has ever played. He starts pooping on Jake Paul at one point, so that's something. The film stars Maya Hawke, who wants to be a director / content creator, and when she finds this enigmatic guy named Link, who the camera absolutely loves, they team up and start to get some internet clout, but at what cost? That's the question. I know I keep saying Andrew Garfield's great and like he's the best part of the movie and a lot of these things, but he is, in my opinion, the standout of this movie. He is the reason to watch it, and while the rest of the film itself I found to be a little lackluster at times, he puts the city on his back and just goes crazy with it. He is this very like scummy and just not cool villain-like character, and it makes this an incredibly unique performance in his filmography. His character Link too is the film's best as far as the most interesting, and towards the end of the film he gives this monologue where he's allowed to just go crazy and twisted and uncaged. It honestly was one of my favorite pieces of acting I've ever seen from the guy. Maya Hawke slowly realizing who this guy really is and what he values is the best dynamic in the film. Unfortunately, other parts of the story didn't really hit for me, although again, I don't think it's really as bad as some people make it seem on those reviewing sites. I'd say it's one of his skippable films, but if you want to see a more villainous role, you can check it out. That last monologue, again, almost makes it worth it for that one scene. For me though, I'm putting it at 15.
Tammy and I are undergoing the most vicious attacks in the history of this ministry.
The Eyes of Tammy Faye is a movie that kinda got sidelined in 2021 among all the hype for Tick, Tick, Boom and No Way Home. The film follows the rise and fall of husband and wife Tammy Faye and Jim Bakker, who are a pair of televangelists who get a little lost in this massive amount of fame and wealth they get by preaching about Jesus. This is a rare kind of movie that mixes Jesus Garfield with unlikable Garfield. I don't want to call him a bad guy because he's not really that, but him and his wife Tammy are pretty interesting individuals to say the least, and I found this movie pretty entertaining. Jessica Chastain won the Oscar for Best Actress in this film, and it makes a ton of sense. She absolutely steals every single scene she's in. But I also really enjoy Andrew Garfield, and I think he should have been nominated as well. It would have given him the elusive nominated for both supporting and lead actor in the same night, but alas, it didn't happen, which sucks because he's terrific. It's a very unique film in the Andrew Garfield filmography. He speaks in a southern accent, he's got just a bit of prosthetics on his face, and by the end he looks incredibly similar to the real Jim Bakker. Garfield does a terrific job with everything Jim goes through in the movie, and he goes through a lot. Bakker is a complicated guy with motives that seem to be changing constantly, and when the movie needs him to lean into a more manipulative side, he does that really well too. It doesn't really feel like any other characters he's played. I enjoyed the movie for Jessica Chastain's incredible performance, as well as how it tells the stories of these very unique, very complicated individuals. Andrew Garfield, of course, crushes it. I've said that a million times. If you're a fan of him, I recommend checking this one out. It's an easy watch, but still interesting, well acted, and well made. His 6th best film.
Hi, I'm John.
This was a movie I was incredibly hyped for since the moment it was announced. I love the musical Rent, written by Jonathan Larson. I also love Lin-Manuel Miranda. I think he's one of the most talented people we have right now. Throw in Andrew Garfield, and what's not to be hyped about? Let me tell you, I was absolutely blown away by this movie. Not only does Andrew Garfield learn how to sing in this movie, but he absolutely crushes it. 3090 being one of the best musical sequences I've seen in a film, and I can't even tell you how long. I've said before, Andrew Garfield, from my perspective, acts with a lot of kindness and empathy, but in addition to those, in this movie, he brings this strong sense of inspiration and creativity, but also how these two things can be a bad thing when impacting your relationship with other people surrounding you. His performance is full of hope, determination, and for me personally, it's an incredibly inspiring film. Hope, friends, relationships, he loses so much in the pursuit of creative fulfillment, something I think Lin-Manuel Miranda tackles really well in a lot of his work. He sings, he dances, he acts, and it makes a ton of sense why he got the Oscar nomination for this. It's full of emotion, both happy and sad, and I think it has something for everyone, even if you're not a big fan of musicals. The story itself of Jonathan Larson is so important, and I'm glad this movie exists to help give him the recognition I don't think he ever really got. I've seen in a few interviews Garfield describing this as singing Larson's unfinished song, and man, what a song it is. One of the best Andrew Garfield movies and performances he's ever done. It kills me to put it this low, since it would be #1 in a lot of other actors' filmographies, but this guy's library is just too good. I'm putting Tick, Tick, Boom at 4.
No, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. I'm a nice guy. Okay.
What can I say about No Way Home, except maybe the greatest performance Andrew Garfield ever gave was during that Tick, Tick, Boom press run.
And I did see it, and it's a Photoshop.
But like he said, I went into this movie with just a tiny bit of doubt, so when he showed up for the first time, what a moment. The first half of this movie is fine, but the second half of the movie, once Willem Dafoe starts going banana mode, absolute insanity, but in the best way possible. I think it would have been hard for the 3 Spider-Men together to be a flop, but they don't just rely on that, and I really like what they do in the film. Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man specifically is awesome to see here because we never really got a conclusion for his trilogy, and I love him in this movie. We get more insight into what he went through after the loss of Gwen Stacy, and he uses it to help Tom Holland's Peter in a time he really needs it. Of course, our boy kills it. I've said that a million times by now. Leaving this movie, everyone was saying, wow, Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man's awesome. He should have more movies. I been knowing that. Put some respect on Spider-Man 2's name. When he saves MJ the same way Gwen died, I could have cried. I could have cried, okay. Even the manliest of men gotta feel something in that scene. Like, if you don't, stop the lies. Okay, you're being goofy. Everything he did with the character all those years ago, he does once more in this movie, and he reminded me why he's my favorite Spider of the group. He acts with a contagious passion that makes you want to do better. He's lighthearted, funny, witty. Not that the other ones aren't, but I don't know, Peter 3 just hits different. The first half holds it back a bit in my opinion, but still a really good movie, putting it, of course, at number 8. I know what you're thinking, who's this guy to make some big analysis of a Hollywood actor's performances? Do you make movies? Are you an actor? Well, I did take an acting class in college, so yes, I am. To that, I'd say I'm actually a part of the only demographic that really matters, the same one you're a part of, the audience. Movies aren't made for executives or stunt guys, they're made for the public to take in and consume. They're made to help people escape into another world, a world where they can laugh, cry, or even save the city from a giant lizard man. The way we, the audience, interpret these movies is really what matters. And as someone who helps these movies come to life, I am a consumer telling you, the people, what this guy's performances and movies mean to me and how I interpret them. My opinion is no better than yours or your mom's or your dog's. Maybe they'll watch Silence and see Father Rodriguez as a selfish man. They'll see Jim Baker as a hero, Desmond Doss as a fool. So I encourage you, if any of these movies sound interesting to you, take a watch and maybe you'll get something completely different from them, but just as valid. So why do I think Andrew Garfield is as good as he is, outside of just saying he's really good? Here's my take. It's clear to me that the guy does a lot of research and preparation for his roles in an attempt to understand the person he will be portraying. He found a love for Jesus while preparing to play Father Rodriguez. It seems he wants to know what drives these people and the emotions they feel so that he can convey those emotions and sometimes use that as a vessel to help us feel the same thing. When Desmond Doss is scared, it's the job of the actor, writer, director to show us why he's scared and why we should be scared for him. He seems to be a very down-to-earth guy with a lot of kindness, and that kindness shines through in a lot of these characters. A lot of these characters are good-hearted people, and I think those ones are great, but the even more unlikable characters like Link have a twisted form of that kindness that ends up being manipulative. I don't have anything fancy to say except the guy seems to put a lot into what he does, and as far as an actor's job of conveying genuine emotions, Andrew Garfield is damn good at it. I think he should have been nominated for a lot more than he has, and I don't think he has a bad movie in his filmography. A few are skippable and a little lackluster compared to the others, but the sheer quality of these films is insane. I'm not saying he carries all of the movies himself because he has been lucky enough to work with some incredible filmmakers and actors in their own right, but you can tell he has a good eye for what makes a character and film interesting. So as far as my final rankings go for the film, let's do those top 3. It's tough, but in third place, I'm gonna go with Hacksaw Ridge. It then comes down to 1 and 2, and I think this is a matter of preference. I think any of these 3 movies could be number 1, but I'm gonna put Silence at 2 and The Social Network at 1. As far as his performances go, I'm not gonna get too deep into it. Obviously, none of his performances are bad, but like I said, one of them has to be in last. In last, I'll go Lions for Lambs only because he's not in the film that much, and it doesn't really ask that much of him. And then I'll go Never Let Me Go, followed up by Boy A, and then the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. This might come as a surprise, but after that I have No Way Home. He's really good in it, but just, again, this thing's crazy. And then we have Under the Silver Lake, followed by Spider-Man, and then followed by Breathe. This performance is way higher than where I rank this movie in his filmography, but again, I just think he's terrific in this film, and that's mainstream. And then we have 99 Homes, and then Spider-Man 2, a film that, again, I didn't rank that high, but I think he's terrific in this film, showing that some of his best performances might be in weaker films. And then we have The Social Network, which again might come as a surprise. In 4, we have The Eyes of Tammy Faye, followed by Hacksaw Ridge, followed by the Oscar-nominated Tick, Tick, Boom, and then his best performance, in my opinion, is Silence, and I don't really think it's that close, to be honest. One of the most talented actors of his generation, someone who I feel connected to now. Not in a weird way, okay? But in a way I've seen his characters feel so many emotions that I have felt in my own life. A lot of these characters I really identify with. And that's why we watch movies, right? To escape our world for a few hours and save the day, to write a beautiful piece of music, to see some of our own struggles personified in people, to feel emotions and think thoughts we've always had but didn't know how to express. Looking at these roles, we better understand our friends, families, ourselves, and the world around us. All thanks to talented filmmakers, crew members, and top of their game actors like Andrew Garfield.